ping them, and we can get started, and they can join in.
Sure. And feel free to, if you're on kind of like, well, we're going to just flow into this, and then feel free to like write things in the chat. If you have like a burning question and you don't want to say it by voice. I mean, I think it's better for the flow of the presentation that I don't that you don't butt in while I'm talking. But definitely like I think like the chat is a good place to just throw things in there, and then we can also kind of have a record of it. So if I don't address it right away, I can scroll back and attend to it. And I will try to attend to all post questions. How, just one more question. How long does this go on for, approximately?
Usually, usually we tend to try to keep it in 1 hour and a half, along with that should include the class as well as some discussion and interaction and some dialogue that comes up.
Okay. Well,
But
no,
don't
no.
worry about it if you go farther away from that time, or if it's less than that time, no worries. We just
Okay.
put this hour and a half to have some kind of a notion.
That's good. Okay. So, Dada. Dada is a platform started in 2014 approximately. That is a drawing conversation platform. It's a sort of like Exquisite Corpse. If you're familiar with this style of creating art together, where one person makes a drawing and then people respond to that drawing. The drawing is all done on the platform. We have our own drawing tools. We like to call them like shitty drawing tools because they're like really basic kind of web canvas type drawing tools that are a little bit tricky to master at first. But once you get the hang of it, it's the motivation, the intrinsic motivation, and you'll hear this word a lot in this presentation, draws you into drawing with other people, because the idea is that when you draw something and someone responds to it, it's a really powerful feeling. Because I mean, it's kind of magical when you draw something and someone responds to you with a drawing, which is it takes a lot of effort to do. Like it's not something you can just sort of like, there's no bucket tool, for example, so you can't make a circle and put a splot in the middle of it. You really have to like draw with every effort, every little line or pixel or whatever. It's not even pixel based. It's some weird kind of something weird that this it uses. But you can see this first slide is a conversation that is revolved around like classical paintings, for example. Um, so so it's actually called pop art, and it was made by different. Every one of these drawings is made by different artists on the platform, and in most cases anybody can join. Dada, that's an open door. You can sign in, create an account, and then start drawing. At the beginning, when you start drawing, you can't respond to any drawings. You have to sort of contribute a few drawings first, and then we have this dot system where um, when you start to draw, you start to gain experience, and then you're able to say start to respond to other conversations, and it takes a while to go up the dot system, um, because it takes a long time to do that. It's just like any kind of game in a way, of like a video game, like World of Warcraft, for example. Once you get to like level 60, it takes a long, long time to get to level 70. So it's kind of similar. You have to do a lot more drawings, and it's not just drawings that you're evaluated on. You're also evaluated on like your participation, how much, how many times when you responded to a message. There is also like kind of like a little comments box. So it takes it doesn't just, it's not very simple. Like, I'm just going to draw a lot using it, but it also doesn't. It's not strictly bound to having to do X thing. So I can't tell you how it's weighted exactly. And it really doesn't matter in the end, because when you start to draw on Dada and you start to converse with people, you get absorbed in it. You get absorbed in, you get to know the people who are drawing there. You find a flow with other people, and it's very, very rewarding. The reward is action itself. It's very powerful. So it was created by this platform was created by Bea Ramos and Judy. Those are names you will hear quite often in this presentation. And they started with this idea of just having a place for making art, but also this idea of having a place where potentially artists could also, and similar to the way we talk about crypto, where artists could also kind of have a sort of make a living, be protected from the market somehow, continue making art. So here's a video, no audio, unfortunately. I don't know why. Of all of the artists, actually, there's no idea, who are all around the world. In Africa, this is in Kenya, this is in Norway. This is a visual conversation of all of those artists in that particular video. There's Bea, Ocho in Chile, Marco in Croatia. I don't remember all the names. Mexico, in Italy. Yes, Kenya. um, so I've been around since 2014, and there was a lot of drawings being made. And around 2017, they started, that Bea and the team heard about blockchain and this whole idea of like a rare art being made, like a digital art being rare. So up until now, you couldn't, up until that point, anytime you just put a JPEG on the internet, anybody could take it and send it around. And as we know now, we have blockchain, and this idea was inspiring for them in 2017 already. There was this kind of the first instance of a sort of blockchain-based token was on Bitcoin and a thing called Counterparty, and they started making these rare papers. So basically, digital became a rare art thing, and it was inspiring because for DADA, because they wanted to be able to capture the value of something that was before was infinitely reproducible. So how are we going to do that was a big question. Like it was an intriguing idea of how to do that. And so so Bea went and attended the Ethereal Summit. And in 2017, you can see the little yellow arrow. That's where she's sitting right there. And it was a mind-blowing experience because her and many other people saw the potential that this technology could provide for artists. And not just the sort of very basic monetary scarcity thing, which was common now in crypto art that we know, but also a way for a fair distribution system in which the value that a platform captures would distribute what it receives in sort of quote unquote rewards or harvests, could be distributed more evenly between all the participants, just regardless of the level of whatever, how popular their drawings were, for example. So this was like a potential for social change in this technology was acknowledged by Bea and DADA as a whole, and thus began this journey to explore that idea. Um, and so they were kind of influenced by things like the rare pepes, and the sort of aesthetic was very interesting. The CryptoPunks, this sort of marketplace with a collectible structure, and they kind of reached out to a lot of these people. And like, for example, the contracts, the first contracts that were launched on Dada were actually sourced from the CryptoPunks people. So that's how close to the beginning of this whole movement Dada was. The whole idea of this sort of decentralized and um, open source tool set with different levels of scarcity, where you could have like editions, et cetera, was really, really inspiring, and they really jumped into it very early on, find a way to harness this power. So in October 2017, they tokenized their first collection of ERC-20 tokens, the Creeps and Weirdos collection. So it was 108 drawings curated from this large collection of drawings from 3D artists mostly from Latin America. For some reason, Latin America was really drawn to this kind of style of collaboration. I know this personally also, that the Latin American community in general, because I was in my previous life, I was a VJ. and working a lot with a software company. And a lot of the most energy was coming from South America at that time. A lot of people were, there's just something really powerful about that region of the world where they really kind of like, they like to get together. Yeah, let's do this. And so Dada attracted that same energy. So this first Creeps and Weirds collection was created, edition of 16,600 tokens with 5 levels of scarcity. And this was the first like decentralized marketplace really of really art. So up until now, like you had Rare Pepes, which is kind of a meme culture, sort of tech bro culture in a way. And then you had like the CryptoPunks, which was kind of more a little beautifully designed, great idea, very clever. But Dada was really art, whereas the first time it was like artists from who were not maybe tech savvy necessarily, definitely not blockchain oriented, making art, and then those works were being minted and sold in a sort of decentralized marketplace with a smart contract. So in the video, you can see like there's like all these. I'll run it again just one more time. You can see like the marketplace and all the different art, and each one up for sale, which was on ETH, no longer using blockchain, the Bitcoin network. And some of them were extremely rare, and some of them were, were very like really common level. So they was all were culled from different conversations from data that were drawn up until that point. So they weren't really specifically drawn with the idea that they would be sold. They were just taken from its previous thing, which is kind of interesting because I think about it with my entered in the crypto space. That's kind of what I did was I just brought a works that I had done previously at first because that's what I had available at that point. Okay, so next slide. So another thing about Dada's contracts that's very unique and is a first is the fact that they had encoded royalties into the contracts, meaning that you could, in the primary sale, a certain percentage would go to the platform, another percentage would go to the artist, and then in the secondary market, a percentage would go to Dada, a percentage would go to the artist, and then the owner. And this was the first one. There had been no royalties before that at all. So it's another pioneering aspect of data. And now it's the standard, but when it started out, there was like I think super rare was maybe the second one, perhaps. And then sort of after that, there was a very strong voice from the community, a crypto art community, to really get all the other platforms on board with this idea. And actually the royalty on the data was, I think it was about 45%. So it was really kind of up there. This was true up until this event we call the Ape Storm, which happened about almost a year ago or so. I don't want to get into that too much, but basically that we had to change a lot of the ways in which we thought about the market. So, but just so it's very, very clear, Dada was the first to encode royalties into their contracts for artists. So if there was a secondary sale, money would go to the artist. So as a result of this, yes, the leaders, exactly, hidden forces. I know you. I know who you are, hidden forces. Follow you on Twitter. You follow me on Twitter. Oh, such a small world. So as a result of this kind of new marketplace, they were invited. Dada was invited to this the first Rare Art Festival in January of 2018. This event crystallized the crypto art movement and community. There was an auction at the end where a Homer Pepper sold for 39K, and at that moment we saw that this was going to become a wildly speculative market. And just to say, like, because of the unique and pioneering aspect of Dada being the first to really mint art, the artwork of Dada was prominently featured in the festival, that first edition of Rare Art Festival. and it was just sort of everywhere. And it was the moment when they started to feel like there was a community around this whole idea of rare art, rare digital art. That's where it really began. This is where a lot of people from Superware were there, and Known Origin, and even sort of more like obviously because the Pepe was sold in that thing, there was a whole bunch of people there from the from the counterparty community, Bitcoin stuff. And I mean, this is pre-Tezos, forget it, like yeah, yeah. I would say, interesting point. I would say that you know it now, and you should come and join wherever you are, wherever you're at. I don't think this is a race to who was there first. I don't think that should dictate how we how we evaluate our participation. Because for me, every artist that starts doing this stuff is contributing something valuable to crypto art and everything else that's beautiful in the world, in my view. Just wanted to comment on that because I think it's important that we stress these things. Um, so, yes, yeah, Hidden Force is absolutely right. Is absolutely right. Thank you for that. Very grateful. I might get verklempt and cry, so be warned. Um, so non-fungible tokens are really interesting because there's sort of more than just having one token. Tokens can actually own tokens. There's a sort of there's sort of like a technical but also conceptual game that is can be played in this technology that isn't very much exploited enough at the moment. But early on, there was a project where Dada collaborated with the Cryptokitties, and what they did was they had the Cryptokitty, and you could set it up so that the Cryptokitty could own an artwork. So this is very kind of esoteric currently still, part of the technology. But this was done in 2018 already, this idea. Um, I think it's kind of funny and silly. CryptoKitty can own art, but they were able to do this. So it's like it's a cat with accessories that you can get, like, sunglasses and dress it up with a watch or whatever, but you can also have it collect art. And so it was like kitty hats. It was basically a collaboration between Dada and CryptoKeys and kitty hats, for example, so that the kitty can own a cat. So these are things like you can layer things in an image, right? Um, there's other platforms now that do things similar ways, like Async. Art does sort of, a whole structure of layering different components together, but literally Dada was like one of the first ones to play with this idea. So that a token or a kitty could own art. And I think we'll see more of that in the future. I mean, the gaming thing is just already big for that, but I like the idea of the art using this as well. So, it says here, I'm reading off the text right now, full disclosure. We were and still are thought leaders in the space, speaking at NYU, Ethereal Summit, Christie's in London, South by Southwest, Prague, and our artists spread the word as far as Patagonia. Our mission was to create a more equitable system so that artists could live from their art, spreading knowledge about the change of paradigm this could bring to artists worldwide, rooted in collaboration and community. And there's like a whole thing of like just kind of going around and really spreading the word about Dada and the technology as well. I mean, we try in general to be as inclusive as possible, and when we do things with other people, or for example, we're preparing this historic NFT festival in Barcelona, and it's not just about Dada, but it's even less about Dada and more about honoring all these early projects, even the failed ones, really, and getting to hear from these people and have a dialogue and discuss where we are now and where we're going to go in the future, as a whole, and the whole scene, for example. So it's these meetings are really vital because it's really where ideas are exchanged. I mean, we do a lot of this online, obviously, and this is the perfect example of that. But trying to get to places and meeting face to face is really, really valuable. if you can do that, and also connecting with the artists. I have a message here that there was someone like these places include like someone like Kevin McCoy did the monograph, or Amy Whitaker at Christie's. There's they've done like keynotes at the Ethereum Summit, and it's and trying to explain like why all this is important for the art. You know, really stressing that again and again to bring it back to the art. And it's not, believe it or not, that's not easy because there's so many distractions. So where we are today, Dada has a large art community on the Ethereum blockchain. I mean, we've also at Dada, like some of the artists, because we didn't really have any kind of system in place. We also kind of made an effort to sort of onboard artists onto crypto normal, like regular platforms too. And this is a kind of a way in which we actually, as a community, help one another quite a bit, and that's really powerful as well. And there's like 170K users all over the world. Um, I'm sorry, from drawings and users. Sorry, I might mix them up. So is a huge active community with really deep relationships. So, for example, at this meeting in Prague, you can see various people who were gathered there. Serena, Marco, there's Judy and Bea in the middle, on the upper right. Valparaiso, Chile is a very kind of strong community there of artists working together who know each other now in person. And these people to me are like, I haven't met all of them, but they're to me personally like family. Like because of this kind of connection with Dada, it's this the connections are really deep. It's hard to even explain actually why, but you go through this process of drawing, and then you start to talk with other people in the community, and you learn about their lives, and they share themselves about themselves, and you share about yourself, and it's hard to explain. I don't really have the words for that. Mexico City, for example, also there's like a huge community there. At least you have like at least God, it seems like there's a dozen people down there in Mexico City. That's my impression. And Judy, who's also from Mexico, goes down there as well as Bea, and they have kind of regular sort of gatherings. Actually, in November, I'm going to go as well and meet up with all these people in Mexico and take a bath in tacos. Um, and then in New York, they had the Dreamverse event. All right, excellent. Um, the Dreamverse event where they brought a whole bunch of artists from different parts of the world to make a large mural during the Dreamverse event. And every time we do these events and gatherings, like the experience of being together deepens. Uh, yeah, meeting people in real life, it's just a magical thing. I mean, I'm concerned about the whole like flying thing in general, the use of energy and stuff like that. But I think like when you think about the value of meeting people in person, it's not just a frivolous thing. We're not just traveling around to like go bucket list some kind of tourist thing. We're doing this to really establish um, this bond between us. It's really weird too because, for example, I recently met a whole bunch of people this past spring, and I'd never met them in person before, and meeting them and usually the was just like this, where like you see like just basically like a flat image of their face, and then suddenly I meet them in person, and it's this weird moment where, wow, you're real, like you're really real, you're a real person, and then you're kind of stuck for a little bit. You're like, it's almost like suddenly like the object, the texture is has an object mapped to it, like it's mapped on an object, and it's their face. But then, like, really quickly, within like at least 5 minutes, you're just talking with them exactly as you did when you met them online. It's the same, all the dynamics are the personal dynamics there. It's all just through drawing and like having kind of conversations with people and becoming sort of intimate with them through art. It's really, really powerful. I'd like to say that. Uh, yeah, I know, right? Yuri. It was crazy. It was also weird because I actually never saw your face before, so it was like a moment of like, oh, all right. That's another video. Can you hear? Yeah. So this so this was an auction where this is another kind of first for Dada. In 2018, they did an event where the drawings were made, and while the drawings were made, before they were even finished, they were being auctioned live. So that's kind of another thing that Dada has been doing is live drawing events where the art is created live, and then you have an automatic like bidding thing, so people bid on it before it's even done. And this was in Detroit for the Radical Exchange Conference in 2018, and the collection was called Sight Unseen. So that's another kind of first for Dada. There has to be a weird worm in German for the particular experience of merging someone online. Probably in German. My German isn't good enough, but I'm sure they could invent something that's nice, thick, compound word. I'll have to think about that. Give me some time. Another live drawing performance, which was the first, which was in the Tate Modern. Thank you, Jonah. Thank you. That would be really great. If we could solve that problem before the end of this conversation, then I think we'll have achieved a great service. Um, so, so this is a live drawing. Actually, this is the one I was involved with. It was kind of the first live event at the Tate Modern in London. It was the first sort of uh, blockchain-oriented event, I guess, at a museum, and it was the Tate Modern. And it was like a trying to sort of that it's not just like having to capture like monetary value, but also cultural value, right? Like, and then how do you evaluate all, how do you capture all that, and like in something like an event, like how do you evaluate like a handful of artists drawing at the Tate Modern at an event, which was the first time that this was done, and how do you convey that? I mean, that's something you can just like translate into monetary terms easily because there's so many people involved and there's so many artists involved and organizing people and yeah, there's no way we have the drawings. Yes, this is a great thing. We have like that we have this conversation. I think it was based on like I guess at the time there was like a Namjoon Pike exhibition. It was kind of an exploration of Namjoon Pike. I think my thing is like a little Teletubby there in the middle. Namjoon Pike and Teletubbies, yeah, go there. Um, and this was also apparently minted, so it was like kind of the first NFT project to be shown in a museum, and that was and it was also for me like a really meaningful experience because I was spending time with my Dada kin, as we call them. So that like the big question is how do we do this? How do we really capture this value and try to create something from it and also represent it? And this was kind of a huge dilemma before sort of the huge NFT boom in the last like that was 2 years ago. Um, in the winter, I guess it was in the early early spring, late winter, early spring. We started to talk about this concept of the invisible economy. And so the idea of invisible economy is how do you preserve intrinsic motivations? Um, uh, Intrinsic motivations are basically this, like you want to make art, right? And you just want to make the art you want to make, and you don't really like you don't when you if you're just making art, if you're just sitting around and going, I want to make art, the only reason you want to do that is because you want to make art or you want to maybe communicate something, but you don't really necessarily. For me personally, I don't want to be guided by the market in terms of what I make. I just want to make what I want to make. In fact, I was at a Duchamp exhibition. There's a huge one in Frankfurt. We went this past week, and this was his line already. Back then, he was like, "I don't really have to think about the market. I just do the things I want to do." And the things he was doing seemed absurd. I mean, he was just like taking a an object and saying it was art, and he was just playing really. and we want to preserve this play. We want to preserve this beauty, this thing that's really beautiful, which is play, like just having fun with art and not like being very stressed about whether it's going to sell or not. This is sort of like very much a core um, motivation for Dada. And so we're trying to um, solve this problem, but also not like just push everyone out and say, look, this is not possible. We like the idea of people collecting art, but we want to also separate the monetary from the collection, actually. Like, what if you collect things and you just because you enjoy collecting them and not, and there is scarcity involved, but it doesn't involve, your wallet, for example. So the invisible economy is an effort to do that. So the idea is that you can do what you love, like art, and live from it without being part of the market. Something that's very different from the reality of crypto art space today. So we're now like moving from this sort of blockchain crypto market system into another dimension, which is trying to preserve these intrinsic motivations. So that's where the invisible economy comes along. So the problems with this market system is extreme inequality. You have a star system, you have a meritocracy, um, you have the transfer of wealth and secondary markets. For example, there was a study that we had proposed early on that this guy Massimo had done, where they took the data that SuperBear readily provided about at what point do royalties received from each sale, at what point do they stop benefiting the artists, the creators, and start benefiting collectors? And there was a specific data point projection as to when that would happen, and it actually kind of happened even earlier than they projected. So now what that means is that the value that is captured from the sale, the resale of the artwork is not captured by the artists. It's captured by the collectors. And there's no recourse from this because it's written into the contracts. So this is whoever is like sort of in this game of the star system, they don't even the stars don't even get to benefit from this anymore. That's how extreme this inequality is built into the system of the market. This whole idea of commodification and then, capital gains, and it's like, this is not really how we feel at Dada that we should move forward. We need to solve these problems because it's not sustainable in the long run. It can be done in a different way, and we're looking for that different way. So, so we have what we call the incentive framework. This was developed by uh, the people at Dada, group of people at Dada, and we have a token engineer designer, and we have Bea, and we have Judy, and we have Lenara Verle, and this woman is our token designer name. Her name is Sebnem, and these are people who are very deeply committed to, and I'm involved. I can't say how much I contribute. I'm more of the sort of the house joker, I would say. But I see my role as supporting and letting make you hold the space, which is really important because I really believe strongly in what they're trying to do. Um, there's a sort of graphic that is about needs and motivations, and there are 8 core drivers. There's the need for individual autonomy, and then spiritual aspect, community, and material, basic income, like your needs. And these have overlaps. So between individual and material, there's this validation in which you're acknowledged. And then the material in the community is the commons. This is the fact that when you draw on data, for example, or even if you contribute to any community, like the ownership of, for example, everything in data is not, any drawing on data is not owned by by me or Bea or anything. It's all owned by the community, so everybody shares the responsibility of stewardship of this system. Um, so the spiritual and the community, for example, creates a creative collaboration. Everybody is trying to contribute to the greater good of the whole ecosystem. And then in between spiritual and individual, there's the self-expression, which is how we communicate really. So this is like a called a, this is based on an ikigai kind of graphic, and this is what really our sort of, how would you say, like our sort of graphical mantra, and it visualizes how what the core data is. And it, I wouldn't say it's for everyone, but this really helps us focus on what we're trying to achieve. So if anybody has any questions about this thing, so please do not hesitate. And if it's nothing clear, nothing I'm saying is clear, please raise a hand, just speak out, right? Because if we're going into territory here that is um, beyond what we're used to right now with the markets. So I want to just read off this thing because it's very clear. Our incentive framework takes into account people's intrinsic motivations as well as the tension between individual freedom and fairness, personal passions, and basic material needs. The invisible economy's core values are organized in two intersecting axes. One represents the balance between freedom and fairness. The other represents the balance between intrinsic and extrinsic rewards. Extrinsic rewards being more what we're used to in the market, where you do things to you have a job to make money. That's extrinsic. You're being basically told what to do. Whereas as an artist, you want to just make whatever you want to make. I mean, that's always how I've always felt about it. So this is an analysis of the crypto art market, as I was talking about before, the extrinsic quantitative, the artists, which is kind of like it's kind of like a pyramid, and then the secondary market where the collectors make more of the money. And so what's out of the boundaries is all these other things that are not accounted for in this pyramidal value. Like anything you contribute, even if you're a small player. So this is the another, like these are two contrasting things in a way, you know. You don't see a pyramid here, you see a circular movement of value flows. And what you see here is an upward movement of value flows going to the very few, which is basically very sad because it's replicating the same system that in the way crypto was trying to change in the beginning. So markets have extrinsic incentives that drive speculation, competition, antagonism, etc. That's why we have fights on Twitter. The outcome is always a few winners and a long tail of people who cannot access the system, not for lack of talent or hard work, but because they don't have the power. And the gains go mostly to collectors instead of artists. Markets don't account for any other kind of priceless value. In contrast, the IE, which we call is short for invisible economy, encourages abundance, collaboration, and creativity. The DADA token, which I won't get into so much around here, the DADA token represents the value of all the art created on DADA, its history, community, the network effects, but also the value of the platform and the community, the innovation. People earn the token by drawing, curating, collecting, coding, and building this economy. The invisible economy and how people will be rewarded in communities next community. So basically, at the moment, like for example, Dada is a company, but what we're doing is we're transitioning to something called, we're doing something called exit to community, where the value of the company is no longer in the hands of a few people, but it's being transferred to the entire community of people who are in Dada, who contribute regularly, whether it's just showing up at all the meetings, or whether it's drawing every day, or whether it's like, I don't know, cheering someone up when they're feeling down, like throwing a party somewhere in their house. There's any number of things that can be considered contribution. So the action, which is priceless, because art really, in my mind, is a priceless action. Like it's so, like if you think of really when someone makes something an artwork, this kind of like, it's like a gift, you know, like to me, like it's a gift. It's truly something that is unquantifiable to me. Making art, when anybody makes art, for me, like that's the base of my my thinking is if someone puts the effort in to just make something, no matter how what you think about it, I think that it's so precious that it's created by someone. That effort to me is huge. The reward is the intrinsic, and the contribution is to the common good, basically. So, so this is that. This addresses these issues, and this took a long time, a lot of discussions to figure out what these things were because it never really been discussed before appropriately to address all these issues and really visualize them. Um, so we don't have a constitution, for example. There's no vetting, there's no voting. We don't vote on anything. We don't do that because it's just another thing that's like polarizing. A lot of our discussions are deliberations where we deliberate things, and this can take 3 hours. But the thing is, we're not in any rush because we don't want to rush these kinds of things because they're too valuable to rush. We're not in a situation where we want to make critical decisions and then like hit the gavel down and go, okay, that's it. There's way too much at stake to not take time with doing this. And I mean, the outcome is when I talk about the token, it's kind of tricky, but basically we're designing a token which will capture the value for everybody involved, generating sort of what you would call a basic income. But the trick with that is that you have to be involved with data, and there are multiple points of entry if you wanted to do that. Again, it's a community. You're getting deep into it. I mean, we have lots of communities, like for example, Taya community. I don't know how many of you use Taya, but that's a community now too. And if you can just sell work on Taya, but you can also, I see hours and hours and reams of discussions with people talking about on the Discord. And I'm already in data, so I kind of have more energy to do that. But they're building something there as well that's quite valuable. And the people who are in there every day chatting away about various issues on how to tackle, how to move forward. That's involvement. And the problem I see with that particular environment, I'm not up to date on it, is they actually don't really. It doesn't seem to me yet that they are creating a fair distribution system. So I don't know. I don't know about that. Say about that. And maybe I should just shut up about that. So we kind of start exploring contribution metrics in a way that we not only want to like capture and visualize all the value. We want to. So we're representing it. So for example, these are metrics, so support like ideas. It's like just creating like kind of little art, out of metrics, so that not only do you have this way of representing value, but also it looks pretty and is engaging and actually like the problem is our kind of obsession with numbers and how many followers we have and how many likes we get is sort of a very narrow way of evaluating contribution when a contribution is like a flower. It's like a beautiful thing that grows and has like different parts. So we created these sort of graphics that really represented various aspects, like whether you were on site or live or online, or what was art, what's just art making, what's coordination, what's contributing ideas. There's all different parts of the whole machinery. I don't really see it as a machinery, I see it more of as a garden, things growing and evolving in a garden. So, so like intangible values are like curiosity, relaxation, love, a sense of belonging. There's satisfaction. I mean, where do you see these on Twitter? I don't know. I've never seen them on Twitter. No one's really evaluating those things on Twitter. So if you take all these things and then you map them together, you get these you get artwork basically. You get to see you get a sort of graphical representation, which is much more satisfying than a bunch of graph numbers. So for example, like you could see like these Bea, for example, that's her contribution at a particular event. Sparrow, Lenara, I'm in the lower left, and this is a much more I don't know, like much more for me, like this speaks to me much more clearly and fully than a graph of numbers of, how much did you, what the, oh, whose bar is higher? Who cares? Like, what does that mean? But in this case, you can see that there's a beauty to, a more full beauty to representing value. And we can do this in so many different ways, and it's really like we're really at the beginning of this exploration. There's other versions of it that are attached to, say, the timeline of a drawing. Like there's this artist, she's here, Isa Kost. She did a bunch of designs that really show like the emotions of different people at different times of day when they drew on Dada, for example. There's so much to explore there, and it's um, really important. So this actual graphic was from a live drawing performance that took place in Rome in 2020, and and so that's how when we did sort of these were all the people involved. Some of them were on Dada, some of them were most of the people were online. The people who are in the below are online, and so Serena Tabachi is there, Eleonora was there, Token Angels was there, and we acknowledge their contributions as well. So that's also contributed and valuable. And then if that's just the way it is. It's really very satisfying to me to see that. So the community has created value that we can channel into different revenue models. Money can flow into the system because we have protections and contributions and metrics to the community. So basically, the thing is that money is not a problem. You can always get money. This is not really an issue. There's we could sell T-shirts, we could sell coffee cups, we could with DADA.art on them, we could do T-shirt, all of this stuff. The problem is what happens when you have the money. How do you distribute it? How do you um, how do you really evaluate people's contributions properly, right? And this is really the struggle. This is really the monumental work of the invisible economy of learning through work with one another and having long discussions about how we're going to do this thing. And there is money in the system, but it has to be managed. And so this is the challenge now, moving into this thing, which will protect the community from what they call in the business bad actors, for example. We don't want, you can't just enter into Dada and then expect to receive something. You have to contribute to it, and then over time, like for example, if you just come to Dada and draw right now, there's no value. You haven't accrued value yet. But as you draw more, you get more dots. You become more involved. Then like you discover maybe I don't know, maybe you're even a coder or something, and you just like want to come in and there's a channel for potential channel for coming in and contributing code to contribute to the development of the website. There are various projects that we have planned in the future. There's like Angie Taylor is involved, and we want to have like a sort of VR type conversation system, like a uh, like where you can go in the VR world and add sculptures to someone else's sculpture, for example. Um, Yeah, this point that was being made here about the DAOs, I think we're actually beyond DAOs at this point. It's DAO is almost very limited because I mean, what they're realizing, most people are realizing now that you can't just have a system, a DAO where people just vote on things with tokens. Like, that's generally a recipe for failure. Or what a lot of people are realizing is it's kind of like therapy. Like you're being yeah, we're being, you're gonna to be able to protect one another or help work with one another. We're gonna have to really kind of learn how to rub up against each other and get into this sort of icky area of being people with being humans with one another, and we do that at Dada, and it's it's a very it's not like we're all one of the things they say about Dada is like we say, well, we're not people think, oh, Dada, it sounds like a cult, but we're not a cult because we are not always in complete agreement with one another. That's why we have long deliberations, and that's something that it should be very clear. Yeah, and so yeah, so it's not only just VR stuff, but there's also other projects like an animation loop thing that we want to do that Marco and I had when we Marco and I here's another valuable thing. How you gonna evaluate this? Marco and I met up in Italy, Emily and I, and then we started playing around with Procreate, and we said, oh, why don't you draw one frame and I'll draw another frame, and then we'll have like a conversation through frames. And so then we had this idea like, well, we'll just do something like that. So we need, for example, to bring in people, we need to design it first, and then we need to have coders to implement it, and then we need to deliberate over whether the thing that's going to happen. And so it's then there's kind of visualization, and you put the code visualizations of all this data, so that so that even like in a way, like what the symbols of these that I was showing before from the previous thing is like they can actually be tokens as well that you can collect, or it is maybe it's just a token that represents your participation, like a POAP. So these are all ideas that need to be discussed and sussed out. Here are like this is a value chart. Sorry, a value flow chart in how we understand what value was created by who and what are the events that shape time and lead to more value creation. So these are these huge graphs. I can't remember who did this. I think it was Bea, and it just shows all of the things that you don't think about when you say go to NFT NYC or something. You don't really see all of the contributions, who was involved, and what their contribution was and what led to the next thing, you know. And actually, like we actually did analysis of these all these events, and like for example, I think wherever there's red, it's a place where like something got stuck, for example, and couldn't go forward. So now we kind of can pinpoint where our weak points are, and then work on those points because everything else appears to be really working really well. Another example of that. And this is also, these graphs are like also used in a way to determine value flows within data. So we have a lot of graphs, a lot of graph making going on. But this is the very kind of simple distillation of data and the invisible economy, and the DADA.art, which is actually the continued decentralized stewardship of the Creeps and Weirdos and other NFT collections. We will probably never mint for market anymore. Artwork like on Dada probably there'll never be a Dada NFT in the future. Well, I can't say no for sure, but if it's an NFT, it'll be not in the traditional sense that we're familiar with now. But the stewardship of these collections will be decentralized and managed by the DADA.art. And those are separate from the invisible economy. If you get involved with data and draw data and involved with the invisible economy, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to, sorry. You don't have to have anything to do with DADA.art at all, unless you choose to do so. And if you're in the DADA.art, there are various aspects of that in which there's a governance. And if you care about this sort of historical NFT collection, you can get involved with that and participate in it as well. But it's not a requirement at all. There are no requirements, just other than being a participant. So that's kind of a very simple distillation of the future of data within the next, say, year. We have other initiatives within data, for example, like the Super Collector, which is basically collecting a lot of historical NFTs, but also there's a collection of Tezos NFTs. We have these, what we call we did when the whole kind of Tezos market kind of took off, we would get together like once a month and then collect artwork with that we would look around, people would suggest things, and not only that, it was really beautiful because you could actually we actually spent time talking about every piece and deliberating over whether we wanted to buy it or not. And it could be like for one TES, it could have been for 20 TES, and then we would deliberate whether we wanted to buy it from the secondary market or not. If we wanted to do that. A lot of deliberation. I've never seen I haven't experienced this. Maybe someone else is doing it, but to get together and like collect together, collective. I think we call it collective collecting. Really rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? Of just sitting there with a bunch of other people who love art and collecting and really talking about the art, not talking about token price, not talking about like whether it's going to have a resale value or whether we can flip it or not. It was really about the art. Does this piece speak to everybody in the group? Maybe, maybe not. Why not? And then deciding if it has value for the group, and then collecting it. And we haven't done that in a while, but it was really beautiful, like a very beautiful experience, and that also can be uh, captured in a way. The value of that can also be captured. Uh, how big was this group at the time? I think we were at that time, the first few times we were about a dozen folks collecting together. And some people would not say very much, and other people I like to talk a lot, so I did quite a bit. Um, but Bea was there, and Judy loves collecting art. You should see, like, and she like gets really excited, starts screaming, you know. And Angie too would chime in, and Lennar was there, and Marco, and yeah, like there was a bunch of people coming in and out at different points in time. And it would be up. We would doing it for like 3 or 4 hours, collecting work. But now the super collector is a little bit more focused on currently on like really historical things that don't haven't really captured the attention of the market necessarily. Um, it sounds like it will only work at smaller. Well, I mean, at the moment we're data, like there is a lot of activity with a lot of different channels, and not everybody has to participate in all of them. Some of them are more focused on development, some of them are more focused on events. So we are a large group of people working together, but not everybody is working together at the same time. It's not really necessary. So, but I mean, I think the potential. I think it's best to really. I think very large organizations to me are overrated. I think we can. I think the more diversity, the more smaller groups that we have working together, who really people who really want to be together is really powerful. I think that like for me and Donna being involved, I go to all these meetings because I really just enjoy being there. I'm not required to be there. I just enjoy being there. I enjoy listening to the conversations, even if I'm not contributing. I really love this group of people, and so yeah, find the thing that you love. Like maybe Dada's not for you, but like the idea is with Dada also is to just inspire people to take this path as well, even if it's not doing Dada necessarily. Um, this is a framework that can be replicated and aimed at something else. And in fact, some of our ideas stem from are inspired from sort of indigenous type structures, and actually kind of emerged in a way. And then we realized that what we had was what these indigenous groups would have, where people are not coerced into doing work. They do things because they love the people they were with, and enjoyed the community and the spiritual aspect is something that unfortunately crypto art does have in it, but um, not really the focus necessarily. The focus is this money, 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 money. But actually, there's beauty in these communities that I see every day. I mean, I have a, I have a, I have a, I have a group of, for example, on Twitter. There's nothing to do with Dada, but there are people who are from Dada in there, and it's like a Twitter marketing pool. But I've set some rules, and it's a very respectful and sweet group of people that I really enjoy interacting with on a daily basis. Um, so there are lots of little things that are just invisible, and we want to make them. And with Dada, we want to try to make tools that allow people from the outside to see that they exist, that they're visible. So here's a line that was written here. I hope that's encourage you to think of the kinds of value that you create in this space. Recently did a poll with Dada about artists, about with Dada artists about the influence of NFTs in their lives, and while monetary influence is obvious, the one they chose as having more importance was creativity, and I would add community. And you're all welcome to draw on Dada. There's also a blog. We have a blog, Medium blog, where you can check out various writings like the Invisible Economy paper, white paper, and coverage of our recent events we've participated in over the years, but most recently NFT NYC. And we also have a YouTube channel, and you can go to the YouTube channel and you can listen to all of the conversations that we've had, and we've had deliberations. I think some of the collective collecting videos are there, as well as hours and hours of deliberations on things like uh, contribution metrics, governance, for example. That's a whole other area of our current focus. Yeah, it's all there. It's all pretty much transparent. There's very little that's hidden it's all hidden in plain sight, as they say. Yeah. So there. That's data. How long did we go? How long have we been doing this? I don't know, but I'm open up for questions. Anything you want to ask, go for it. Just let her rip. Some really good responses too in the text and the chat. Thank you so much for your participation. Thank you for listening to my yapping. Any questions? Anybody? I feel like I stunned a bunch of people and they're like kind of sitting here behind the camera. You're welcome. Oh, thank you. That's very sweet and important. Thank you. Oh yeah, it's a narrative. It's a welcome.
Oh, I would have a question. I think I did not fully actually understand everything or how it works. At some point, I was thinking there's this like token, and that it holds a value, and that the value is like distributed to like all the people contributing basically.
Yes.
But then a certain later, I wasn't sure if there was actually any system like money involved at all.
There will be, and it will be set up in such a way that you can't sort of like you'll get what you need, but you can't like overdraw what beyond what you need. And that and the like there'll be an initial distribution because we have to sort of go back and look at all the contributions of the past. But moving forward, then that changes into a system in which as you contribute, you can withdraw value for it to say, cover your rent, etc. That's kind of the goal.
Okay, so the statement from Reverse Butcher about the universal basic income is kind of like right? It's kind of like something like this a bit.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of we don't want to use the word basic income because a basic income means you get money regardless. Like that's just which we should have that actually, to be honest. But it's like you do have to work with data to become part of data to to earn the token. Like you have to contribute in some way. So it's not really basic income. But the idea is to preserve the intrinsic motivation so that you enter data not going, oh, I need a basic income. You go to data because you want to be there because you enjoy being there. You will stay there because you enjoy being there, not because you need the money. Because if you need the money, then you'll see data as a waste of time, basically.
Yeah, I see. Thanks.
You're welcome. I mean, this is like the why we have hours and hours of discussions is because we're trying to find ways to preserve the intrinsic motivations and not make a system where someone can just come in and extract value from it, which is what happens with a lot of projects in the space, right? Or you suggest having a teller wake up? Yeah, yes. Okay, that's a really good question. Um, I have a Wacom tablet for drawing on data, and I think it's the best way to do it. You can currently draw using I would use Chrome browser for sure. Um, Although you can use Brave as well because it's basically the same framework. And I find just drawing through the browser on the iPad, for example, very challenging. I've lost drawings as a result of that. But I know people who, for example, Crypto is one of our core artists, and he's for example totally fine with drawing what's there using a tablet, using the iPad. Another way, if you have an iPad and you don't have a Wacom tablet and you have a Mac, is you can use something called was it Air Display or whatever? It basically, or was it called Sidecar, where you use your iPad as an extended screen, and then you can just Sidecar. Thank you, Yuri. And you just drag the browser into the iPad, and then you go full screen, and then you can draw on data using the Apple Pencil. But I would say the I would say that the Wacom tablet is currently the best approach. They are working on a version 2 of the Dada drawing system. It should come out by the end of the year, and this will be totally perfect for using it on mobile iPad, maybe even your phone. If you have a big enough phone, you can draw. I know I draw a lot on the phone. I have Procreate, and I do a lot of stuff on the phone, Procreate, but I guess we'll be able to do that with Dada as well. No, no, we're not going there yet, unfortunately. I think that's also a thing like we've talked about that a lot. Collage and Dada, what we don't know yet with that, and we haven't had time to focus on that aspect of it. We definitely want to go there at some point. I think that's a trust thing. You know, you won't be able to just go on Dada and do that right away. That's something you have to kind of like gain trust. We might have to like also limit it to like Creative Commons images and also limit it so that it's nothing, you know, racy or whatever, like child porn, you know, all that crap. So I think however we implement collages in the future, it'll be done in a way that protects Dada and the artists and everybody involved, period. And that's very important to us. As you know, Yuri is a collage artist, and he has stuff on Taya and other platforms, and I am a collector of his work.
Yeah, Ilan, hi, Yuri here. So I remembered it in the first 2006 or 7, I think. I met these two artists from Holland, France, and via Flickr, I think. And we had this exquisite corpse also. So we got I got an image and was just sending via email and JPEG. So one started and then sent to the email to another person, and they could change. And it wasn't even sending Photoshops with layers and everything. No, it was you sent one JPEG, and then 1 week later he sent to the other person. So it was like this triangle, and we did like some 2 or 3. It was really interesting, but it would be interesting to maybe for Dada, like because my drawings is horrible. So maybe just having this kind of like you do it on your
I mean, yeah, I mean,
Photoshop.
if you wanted to if you wanted to start a conversation on Dada with other Dada artists just that way, then yeah, you could probably just spontaneously start something like that on your own or on the Dada Discord server if you wanted to join in. I don't see a reason why that couldn't be a thing. I just wanted to address Ellaby's question. If you go to the site, it's just you draw, and then another drawing is made. When you add a new drawing, it's to the right of the drawing, and then it goes on like as long as it needs to go. It can go on forever, really. You also have what they call branching. So you can if you can just branch off and create a new conversation off anywhere all along the conversation. The square format that you see, that's we just assemble those for presentation purposes. We might have some way of generating those automatically in the future, but at the moment we just have to assemble those by ourselves. I, for example, like have a thing where it's called the unresponded project. So I asked for a list of all the drawings on Dada that had never been responded to, and I got this really long text file. And I think I'm the only one doing this project, but basically, every time I go on Dada, I pull the last one I unresponded from that list, and then I go and respond to it. It could have been made years ago, who knows? And I respond to it, and then when a conversation evolves out of it, I get a kind of I have a template for putting together the whole conversation in Affinity Photo, and then I tweet it out online and try to tag everyone involved. Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun little it's my little side project. And in the future of Dada, we're gonna have like a system where those drawings can be offered up as what you could respond to if you wanted to at any given time. Yeah, there's a whole plan for that. I mean, we also want to have our own chat platform with our own video because we don't like Discord, and we want to have like more of a Dada type chat environment. Yeah, I mean that's the thing was also with the inclusivity. We also want to have systems where if people can't draw that, they can still contribute. I think it's really important, but we need to figure out how to do it right.
Hello, Ilan. Thank you for your presentation. It has been very nice, very interesting, and all the reflection about the invisible economy is very inspiring. I've got a couple of questions about the platform. One is it the platform is centralized right now, no? So is everything is in one server?
Right now, everything's on one server. Yeah. The future is to use something called holochain, which is not a blockchain. It's a completely distributed system, and in which it's multiple people are hosting the app, which would be Dada, for example. So that's the future of Dada. But now we're still stuck in this, central structure server.
And does it have like kind of control, or I mean, censorship, or is it totally open?
It's totally open. I mean, if you go and draw something that's just draw a dick, I think they will censor it. We are keeping track of that, but essentially, like, if you do something really heinous, either no one will respond to you, or I don't know, they might remove you. But essentially, anything really goes. I mean, there's some really erotic drawings on Dada, but it's done with love. It's not done maliciously. It's very rare that someone comes in and does malicious things on Dada.
Yeah, and thank you. And the last question is because lately I don't know if I am a coder. I do creative coding,
Right.
and I usually draw with code, no? So
Right.
I'm used to draw with my mouse or with my tablet, and so I found a way to draw on a canvas on a web page by using code. So I could access the Dada web page and create a drawing using code. I don't know
This is
that.
something we want to do in the future for sure. And that makes complete sense to me that we would have that feature in the future. Yeah, I don't see any reason why not. But I think you could even, if you wanted to be the spearhead of that project, and you would just jump into Dada and start like checking out what's going on the Discord server, and proposing a project to integrate that kind of world into Dada. I think that's what we're looking for. Is we're looking for people who are really motivated to do such things. You know, it'd be
Right.
really more than welcome. More than welcome. There's that's an open door, as far as I'm concerned. I would love to see that.
Great. No, by the moment this is very experimental, not just opening the console and typing some code, but it could be implemented somehow, I guess.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I mean, there would be multiple ways to do that, I'm sure. And as you know, like there's tons of like the whole uh, you know, uh, what's it called? Like this open coding
well,
environment
yeah,
on the web. WebGL, but there's also like the hardcore stuff like the shader toy and stuff like that.
yeah.
They exist already, right? But they're just strictly there for you to code. And there is community, but they're not really looking at the larger picture of trying to create a community and try to capture the value. So,
Yeah, and
like you
also
could e-
beside of using code is that you could import your own images, which is also
yeah, that's the thing that Yuri was asking about, and that's tricky because you're dealing with, trust. You have to, where I think that would be a part of the dot system where you would have to develop trust, or some other system that would allow people to do that in a safe way, because that can get abusive right away. That can be tricky.
yeah.
So I mean, the thing was that the thing is, it's so hard because we just come from drawing, right? We started with drawing and discovered by accident that this is a great way to filter out bad actors, you know? So now we have to figure out how do you do that with other media, with other types of media. With VR, it's like kind of like, okay, it's the same thing. You have to go in and you have to create stuff, so it's similar to drawing in a way because you sculpt, right? You just have to start from scratch. But a photo is like, it's too easy, you know, It's- like uploading a photo is too easy. So we need to think of that. Then one of the things that I think gets tossed around is that if you want to come and make collages, you can use DADA.art that's already there. So you have all this material that's existing, and you can use that to create collages from that. So that's another way to think about it. Yeah. Well, that's again like an ongoing discussion that's going to require deliberations, etc. Right now, maybe there's too much going on in terms of the amount of projects that are being handled, but when those get out of the way, then we'll have room for more of those things to go on. But and also as we bring more people, if someone like you comes and spearheads a project like that, it creates the space for those things to happen, and then we just adapt to whatever that is, and make it part of the whole ecosystem. Or you take the ideas of data and visible economy and bring that to an existing structure where they're doing, creative coding online and say, hey, let's adopt this system as a means of being able to preserve intrinsic motivations.
Inspiring. Yeah, I'll check the Discord.
Like you go right. Good. You go this way. You go this way. You may approach it. Yeah. Great. Good questions. Really nice. It makes me very happy to see people, hear people responding, driving and gelling these ideas. Anyone else? We have been here. I guess we have been here for an hour and a half. Shit. Yeah. Damn. Who knew? Exciting. Yeah, tits feel sim. It's great. It's awesome. Oh, that's really great. I love that one. I'm gonna keep that one. What a gift that is, right? Really, really wonderful gift. Thank you so much for that. That's oh man, really nice. Anyone else? Anyone else? Anyone else? Yes. Yeah. I love that. Oh, that's great. I have just to label the file. I just wrote that on something.
Do you want me to pronounce it?
Can I try and fail, and then you can correct me?
Yeah. You try.
Realitätsversammlung.
No.
No?
But it's close. Realität, that was pretty good. Realitätsvermengung.
Okay, yeah.
Vermengung.
Yes, that makes sense.
But I mixed it up, it's like not scientific or something.
If you made it up and then started using it, and then in like 5 years it ends up in the sort of German official dictionary. So because it's not using any English words, right? Yeah. Yeah, start using it now. I'm going to start using it regularly now. Ja, das ist eine Realitätsvermengung, Mann. Was denkst du über diese? Yeah. So we're done, Borja. Are we all satisfied and satiated in our Dada-ness?
To be honest, I don't feel an end coming, but yes, that's my
That's really
sensation.
sweet. Thank you.
I have a word for you guys, and I have no idea what this really means, apart from the fact that I know what it means based on what I've been told it means, but Geschmeidigkeit. If somebody knows German here, maybe knows what this means, but
Yeah, we have a couple of Germans
I
here.
was explained that.
Geschmeidigkeit. That sounds nearly Austrian, to be honest. It's like means to be like smooth and easygoing, like something like this kind of vibe. Yeah.
That's I learned it in the context of contemporary dancing, and the way to be able to be like this meant to be able to flow with the movement and the floor and everything. So yeah, that's the only German word I know.
People also use it to like, to say something is like chill or nice. It's geschmeidig. Geschmeidig.
Oh,
But what you were talking about, yeah, like in the context of bodies, yeah, that you have very smooth movement. Yeah.
Like they would use that
fabulous.
in dancing.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was the
that was the
explanation that
context.
one of the
Yeah.
if you are able to be as geschmeidig as possible, then you wouldn't have any difficulties changing the directions of your movement from the floor to the air, and you would have explosive power of your movement in a way. But you have to be soft to be able to be engaged. That's
Supple would be
the
the word I think you use in English, like supple movements. So it's like, you know, yeah. Yeah, I know some
I
dancers.
like.
How many people know dancers here? How many people are involved with dance at all? Anybody?
I used to do like projections and live poetry performances with dancers when I lived in South Africa.
Oh, nice. Where in South Africa?
Oh, I was in Joburg for 6 years.
Oh, cool. Wow. Yeah, I've been there once. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I see a previous life of mine. Oh, that's great. That's really nice. That sounds, anybody, like, if you can share, like, so anybody actually, first, if you could share a link of any kind of that stuff that you did, and that would be great. I'd love to see that. Um, and also, Yuri, if you could share a link to the Flickr thing that you did somewhere, I'm really curious to see that. Also, if please, um, share your work with me in general. Okay, cool. Thanks, Nathaniel. I would love to see what y'all do. I collect, in addition to making art on the regular market, I also collect work when I can. Um, uh, but yeah, interesting thing about dancing is that and now, like, it's interesting to see. Oh, that's really cool. It's interesting to see the dance people getting involved with DAOs now, like, so this Lenar Verla is now part of this thing called Motion DAO, where thank you, Sai, so much. I just really appreciate that you're sharing all of your links. I love that. FX hash, nice. Nice, nice, nice. Always great. Awesome. I love this mushroom on the watch. Great idea.
Thank you.
As I actually didn't mention this other project we have in Dada, it's called Regrow, and it's providing funding for any Dada artist who's also a farmer or a gardener. And so it's a really nice project, and we have a channel in Dada, uh, in the Dada server, which where people just share what they're doing. Two of our members of the Regrow are, like, now building ponds on their properties, and so we're just watching that happen. They put the plastic thing down,
Yeah.
and it's really nice. And plants, sharing information about different types of plants, what can be grown in different places. It's really a very nurturing experience. Lenar and
I,
I.
my last museum show was all ecological work, but then a side project that I just posted is I'm part of a climate action DAO where we help companies go carbon negative.
Cool. That's great. That's a really good initiative. Must be hard.
It's rewarding, actually.
That's good to hear. I mean, I was at a NF-thon, where it was this friend of mine, a guy I know in Lithuania. We did like basically like a sort of like a marathon of making NFTs that addressed the issue of climate. And there was a woman there who was presenting, one of the presenters, who works at the cultural ministry of Lithuania. And before that, she was working at the agricultural ministry of Lithuania. And she had a lot to say about, how like, oh, my question was like, how do you keep your sanity in that kind of environment, where it's like clearly like one step backwards, one step forward, two steps backwards. And she says like, well, I know that like, I'm very cynical, she says, which I didn't actually find her very cynical, but she said she was cynical. But sometimes when people say they're cynical, they're actually the opposite. It's just like me saying, I feel like I'm a completely disorganized pure person, but then people, see what I do and they say, wow, you're really organized. So I guess I don't really know what it's like to not be, to be disorganized. But she was saying she was really cynical, and she said that making progress on these things, the only really to really do them thoroughly is at the federal policy level, but it's really slow and really frustrating. And then to sort of keep herself going, she would work on smaller side projects, more sort of micro level, because then you at least have the satisfaction of making something happen, right? And yeah, and then she said the things that keep her happy are like in the community. That's really the most important thing. That you're working with people and who are aligned with you. So that you have that core, which is kind of like what Dada is for me. So I assume that you have that the people who are working on this project are very much aligned, and it's a joy to work with them, I'm assuming. Yeah, correct?
Yeah, so far, I mean, so it's a former student. She used to be a studio manager of mine as a co-founder, and then her partner is comes from solar energy background. And it was interesting. It started as we were actually going to do an NFT drop specifically to raise funds to sequester carbon and do climate action. And we found that while the NFT sales didn't do very well, a number of DAOs and NFT spaces started contacting us, asking us, well, how did you do that? How did you get carbon negative? And we just started consulting. And the thing is, there's a lot of offset companies out there that are not all offsets are created equal. And in fact, a lot of them are very are a bit scam.
Yes.
And so we just, we have what we call our first product is we have what we call an eco index, where we actually research at any given moment what are the best climate action methodologies. And then our second product is practice-based rather than outcomes-based. So rather than counting by ton, we count by farmers that you convert, because anytime you convert a farmer, that's not only permanent change, but it's ongoing change, right? They're going to continue to sequester carbon. So yeah, we just got a very small NSF grant to do some customer discovery. We just applied to Seed Club to see if we can do a DAO. And it's, the regen network is kind of vibrant at the moment and wants to make a difference, so one of our things that we talk about is like, well, let's make Ethereum carbon negative within the first 5 years. Like, let's undo all of the emissions and then let's keep going after that.
Right. The sky's the limit, so to speak. Well, I mean, the merge is going to be coming next month. The merge.
Yes, supposedly in the next 2 weeks. Well, our idea was to undo all of it from the beginning.
Right.
But also, you're right.
Retroactively.
So far, our clients have all been blockchain-based Ethereum, artists and DAOs that want to offset their impact. But we'll move off chain shortly, because you have more and more of a voluntary market. And I mean, we just have to. We're doomed otherwise, right? So let's do what we can.
Well, yeah. I think, I mean, the other argument about this, and this one from Lithuania, and this is a discussion also I've had about this stuff with Sparrow, for example. I'm sure you're familiar with it. Is that actually some of this stuff is a little bit of a red herring. Like, for example, like Visa, the total energy consumption of Visa is much bigger than all of blockchains combined, right?
Yeah.
So then you get to this thing. Then if you really want to have fun, you go into like all of the energy consumption for producing shit that we don't need, right? And all the argument is that actually, if you actually distributed basic income, by doing that, you actually reduce consumption, right? Because you're not, there's all these jobs that people have, they're just useless, creating useless things that we don't need.
It's absolutely a wicked problem that has lots of tentacles. And yes, I agree that the blockchain energy consumption is overblown and other spaces are underblown, and we still have to reverse climate change. But I think that there's lots of different ways to engage with that. So we also invest in battery research and nuclear energy as part of our index, because we're not going to stop consuming energy. And in the short term, the only way to overcome the gap between what green energy can do and the amount we consume, honestly, is to go nuclear, at least temporarily.
Yeah.
And so we're a pro-nuclear company, for example.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's like in Germany, they have the Green Party, and for years they always blocked the nuclear energy. And then then one year they were like for nuclear energy, and you're like, what? So it's tricky. It's
Remember when the
tricky.
eggs were bad for you?
Yes. No, I know. I mean, this is it's, I mean, in sort of, if you want to get into an ideal world, like we would just all start gardening, and that would solve a lot of problems there, because you're talking about like basically all these supply chain systems are just awful. Like, there's no reason that a tomato should be shipped from, across the world to you. Like, there's no reason for that. And then it's like you got to think about like things like bioregional design and what you can eat that's in your region, as opposed to eating things that are not in your region, which cost lots of money to ship. Like, it's really an effing nightmare, like, really. And the argument would be that we don't need more energy. We need to figure out ways to make our consumption smaller and more efficient, and focus on things like community, and instead of like Netflix, but you got to start somewhere, and I laud anyone who takes the charge in that direction. I mean, my favorite is like Charles Eisenstein, and there's someone said, like, in the 60s we tried to do this, and then in the 70s we tried to focus on this, and then the 80s we tried to focus on this, and the 90s we tried to do this, and now I just want to do something and make something beautiful. And his response was like, yeah, maybe that in that choosing to do that, you're actually probably doing the best thing you could ever do for the planet, is just to focus on making something beautiful. And I've made that sort of my ethos of sorts. That's why I'm involved with DADA, so we're trying to change the way we think about value and how we create it, and what's meaningful. If you really sit down and think about what's meaningful to you, it doesn't involve energy consumption that much, really. Maybe computers, but that's not that much, actually, computers, compared to, like, again, supply chains, like all that. The world's going crazy a bit, but it's okay. Eventually it'll correct itself. This is completely off the conversation, but it's really interesting to hear that, hear about what other people are doing all the time. I mean, the thing with Holochain we like so much is that it's very low consumption. That's the most attractive thing, one of the most attractive things about it, beyond all the sort of like, the ideas that are much more regenerative than like having one ledger that has to be constantly updated, which is very expensive cost-wise, energy cost-wise.
Yeah. I'm looking over my shoulder and I see my co-founders are actually waiting for me to meet with them. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It was really a pleasure to meet you. And
yeah, what a great background story. It's a bit of a breath of fresh air compared